You're watching the Daily Climate Show on Sky News. On today's programme, why tea and those who grow it are at risk from our changing climate. A green wave or a bit of a washout? We get the view from Westminster on how the Green Party fared in the local elections. And we meet the Devon-based company on a mission to make cleaning more sustainable. Hello and welcome to the UK's only daily climate news show where we track the changes happening to our world right now and meet those coming up with the solutions. We aim to take you to the heart of the climate crisis, explain the data driving the changes that are already affecting us, but also show you just how far we've come. Climate change could be threatening the much-loved British cup of tea and the livelihoods and homes of those who grow it. Extreme weather and rising temperatures mean both the amount of land available for growing tea and the taste of the leaves produced are being affected. A report from Christian Aid suggests that optimal conditions for tea production in Kenya, the biggest exporter of black tea, could fall by a quarter by 2050. So these are the top countries that export tea to Britain. And let's take a look at the threats to the crops in some of the main regions. Well, in Sri Lanka, where they export more than 1,200 tonnes of tea, rising temperatures are shrinking the areas suitable for growing Ceylon tea. In China, longer monsoon seasons are changing the amount of tea that can be harvested. The quality and taste are suffering as the plants react to different conditions. Almost 10,000 tonnes of tea is exported to the UK from India, and the combination of both an increase in temperatures and intense rainfall means ideal conditions for pests and insects that can ruin crops. And half of all the tea drunk in the UK is grown in Kenya. Now, it's facing prolonged droughts, which mean the optimum tea growing areas could be severely affected. Well, joining me now from Nairobi is Mohamed Addo, who's Director of PowerShift Africa, an energy and climate think tank. Welcome to you. So how great is the threat from climate change to tea growing there in Kenya?
Tea, which is actually a very important commodity that is produced in Kenya, is actually currently under threat from climate change. Lots of parts of the country that grow tea have been actually suffering some of the worst impacts of climate change, and that way affecting the livelihoods of the tea growing population.
So what does it mean then for the farmers and also for Kenya's economy?
Kenya is actually the third largest producer of tea and the world's biggest exporter, accounting for nearly 22% of the world tea exports. Our tea is vital to our economy. Approximately 10% of our population depend on tea for their livelihood. Tea is not only a top employer, but also a top contributor to Kenya's export earning. 40% of our tea is grown in large-scale plantations that employs some 100,000 workers, while the rest is actually grown by over 600,000 small-scale farmers. Additionally, tea contributes to 4% of our GDP, while tea exports contribute 26% of Kenya's export earning. And so if tea gets affected, that means that a good part of the population that depends on tea growing are actually going to be affected, and so is our economy.
And in the UK and Ireland, we drink more tea per person than any other country around the world, I hear. So could the UK do more? Would you like the UK to do more?
UK is actually the creator of the industrial revolution. Together with the rest of the rich world, they produce far larger proportion of greenhouse gases, which cause climate change. And it's people like our tea farmers who contributed the least, who have imprinted the lightest carbon footprint on the planet, who are actually suffering the most from its impact. And so the emissions reduction plan that countries, including the UK, have put on the table since Paris do not deliver a safe world, which is what we need if we're going to be able to contain climate change. And so what we need going into Glasgow, for COP26 is for all countries to actually ramp up their emissions reduction pledges so that we can put the world on a safe trajectory that is effectively going to help protect the tea growing population, but also all communities on the front line.
Mohamed Addo, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Let's take a look now at some of the day's other climate news. And UK retailers have cut their carbon emissions in half since 2005. New figures from the British Retail Consortium show some of the sector's leading companies have beaten their environmental targets for the last year. More than 70 retailers have signed up to the group's Climate Action Roadmap, which aims to build a more sustainable economy. People are being encouraged to get out in the great outdoors to improve their mental health. Research by the Mental Health Foundation has shown nature has had a positive impact on people in the UK during the pandemic. 70% of adults say being close to nature improves their mood, and almost half think it makes them less worried or anxious. So David Attenborough is warning world leaders to find a solution to environmental issues, which he says will get worse over the next few years. The broadcaster has been named the People's Advocate at the COP26 climate conference due to be held in Glasgow in November. So David says it's crucial leaders work together to solve the climate crisis.
It is crucial that these meetings in Glasgow, COP26, have success, and that at last the nations will come together to solve the crippling problems that the world, the globe, now faces.
The Green Party says it's had the best local election results in the party's history. In England, they gained 88 councillors and now hold a total of 151 English council seats. In the Scottish Parliament election, the Scottish Greens gained 2 seats. And in London's mayoral election, the Green Party candidate Sian Berry came in third, receiving just under 200,000 first preference votes. That's double the party's total in 2012. Well, our chief political correspondent John Craig joins me now. And John, to what extent does this improvement in the Green Party's fortunes mark, do we think, an increased concern in the public about green issues?
Green issues are much bigger than they were a few years back, and clearly the Green Party has benefited from, first of all, concern about environmental issues, climate change. The Prime Minister, of course, is hosting a big summit later this year. He's under pressure from John Kerry from the United States to announce some really big targets. And the political parties here in the UK are obviously burnishing their green credentials, and it's paying off for the Green Party. Today, Jonathan Bartley told Sky News, we're staking the claim to become England's third party. And as you've said, Anna, they overtook the Lib Dems in the contest for London Mayor. In fact, Sian Berry polled almost twice the number of votes as the Liberal Democrats candidate in London. They did very well in Bristol too. They won 24 seats up from 11. Labour are also on 24, and so the Labour Mayor Marvin Rees is under pressure now to appoint some Green councillors to his cabinet.
Now, we often speak about the role that countries have in tackling the climate crisis, but that's not the whole story. Cities, regions, investors and businesses are all going to be crucial to reducing emissions and keeping global warming below 1.5 degrees. Well, Nigel Topping is the UK's high-level climate action champion for COP26 and is working to drive action from these sectors. I spoke to him earlier and started by asking what success looks like for the COP26 summit in November.
Well, I think 3 things. One, the negotiations, the actual complex technical negotiations to finalise the Paris rule book need to be completed successfully as proof that the multilateral system is still working. Then all the countries of the world need to meet the promise of Paris and come with bigger commitments. We've seen a lot of that, but importantly, those include some more commitments on finance from the global north to global south. And then finally, and that's the bit where my role comes in, huge momentum in the real economy that businesses, cities, investors, and all of us are driving towards the zero carbon economy of the future.
The EU's climate commissioner has recently said that society needs to undergo a tectonic shift if we're going to go green. So how do you persuade people to engage with that when what they hear about COP is those targets that you talk about? It's about percentages and numbers. How do you get people on board when that's the narrative?
If you're talking to a CEO, it's about the competitiveness. Society has decided we're going to zero and we have to halve emissions in the next 10 years. If you're not playing your part in that, you're going to lose the battle for talent because people won't want to come to work for you, and you're going to lose the battle for market share. And if you're an individual, then there are individual things you can do by using your vote wisely and by making purchase decisions yourself to buy things which are zero carbon or massively reduced carbon than in the past. So it depends who you are, but there's something for everybody to do.
And how does that relate to government? You say no medals for setting targets. The government set very ambitious targets, world-leading targets, 78% reduction in emissions by 2035. But are the policies there to achieve that? What's your view?
We're seeing some really strong targets, phasing out of coal by 2024, phasing out of combustion engines by 2030, massive ramp up in renewable energy. But every country where you're seeing these bold targets now, there's a lag between the headline target and then the policies coming through. I think the thing that you can see is the way the private sector is reacting now. They know that those policies, if they're not already there, they're coming very soon. That's why we had 160 firms with $70 trillion of assets join the Glasgow Finance Alliance for Net Zero. They've realised that policy and public requirements are only going in one direction. That's the direction of the science.
It's estimated that around 468 million spray bottles from cleaning products will be thrown away in the UK every year. Many of these are difficult to recycle because of the different materials used in the nozzles and pumps. In today's Climate Diaries, we hear from Emma, who founded the company Elmkind with her partner Alex. They've found a way of using refillable aluminium bottles for their cleaning products to try to address the problem of plastic pollution.
A few years ago, my partner Alex and I realised that there was a huge issue with the way cleaning products were being sold. We found they could only be bought in plastic bottles, and once used, these cheap bottles would inevitably break and end up in landfill, or worse, in our oceans, affecting our seas and our wildlife. Over 400 million plastic spray bottles, solely from cleaning products alone, were being thrown away every year in the UK. So in August 2019, we launched Elmkind. We're a plant-based, eco-friendly, yet effective alternative to home cleaning products. Since launching, we've so far saved over 10,000 plastic spray bottles from ending up in landfill. But as we're still seeing haunting images of animals being washed up with microplastics in their stomachs, it's clear that a lot more still needs to be done.
And that's all from us for today. On tomorrow's show, we're talking reforestation instead of deforestation and finding out how many trees have been planted since the millennium. That's at the same time tomorrow here on Sky News. See you then.